everyone. So today we'll be doing a revision from the last class, and we'll be covering some other topics. The cascade will also be learning about combining CSS selectors, also CSS positioning, CSS display, floats, how to create responsive designs, and media query stuff. Okay, web development, and create a new folder and call it session 3. And I'll now open this folder. On my VS Code. Okay. So we now have a folder open. So in the last class, we learned about different topics, and we learned about the box model, and I gave you an assignment. So let me create my index.html file. So this index.html file, okay. So let me create a boiler template, and if I hover back to our design, okay, this was our design. Let me copy it. Let me save it. Save picture. And come and save it in my desktop. Web development, session 3. I'll create a folder and call this assets. Okay. Save. And close this. And I think I have the pictures here. Okay, let me just put this and put them here. Okay, so we are fine. Okay, so now we are supposed to work on this design. Yes, using what we learned in the past session. So if we look at this design, we could see a background color of black, a border of white, and an image inside this div, or we could say an image. And we have a heading text saying that special moment, and we have a paragraph text. So I'll just briefly or quickly work on this so you see. So now we have a div. Let me give it a class and call it image div. Okay, and we have a heading. What we call it, that special moment. And we have a paragraph. Let me say P. Let me say Lauren. Let me say 10 words. Okay, this is fine. So let me check this in our browser. Let's see. Okay, this is it. So now, if I work on this, what I'll do is I'll open my style tag. I'll use an internal styling since I'm working on a single page. And I'll target my D. And let me give it a width and a height. So let me say 40%. We'll take a look at that shortly. And the height, I'll give it 200. Let me see. Let me say 500 pixel. Let me give it a border. We now know how to use a border, so this should not be strange. Solid and white. And I'll have to give my body a background color of black. Let's see here. Fine, but the height is too long, so I can reduce. Let me say 400. This is not bad. It's fine. So let me center my D. We learn this as well. Okay, it's centered. I can give it a margin top. 20, let me see, 50 pixel. Let's see. Okay. So I can now give the color of my text. We learned about colors. Let me give it white. Because if you could see, you can't see the text, but they're actually there. And that's because they are black. So I need to change it to white. The colors of text to white. So fine, we have it here, right? I can center them by using the text align property and give it center. So they're centered. So now I can add my background image and give it a URL. So I can look, I needed to use just one dot at the end so I can get access to this. And this is supposed to be the image. Okay, but if you can see it's stretched, and that's because of the size. So I can now work on the background image and give a background size. Let me give it cover. So now we have our image and we have the text. So we can, whichever way you want, you can either have the image directly here. Let me see image. Let me write my image tag and give it a source. And let me say the part is in assets. Hold on, this is it. And give it an alternate text. So the alternate text is very important for visually impaired people. So I'll say Margaret image. So now Margaret's image. So if someone who is visually impaired is scrolling through your page or through your website, you'll get when it reaches to the image, it will get the sound Margaret image. So the person will know that, okay, I just came across Margaret's image. Okay. So let me give this a class of image div. Let's see what will happen to my page. We still have to remove this background image. Let me remove. So we still have the same design, okay? Yes, even when we use an image instead of a div. So you can do it whichever way works for you. Okay, so let's go back to what we'll be learning today. So the cascade. And when we started, I told you about cascade. We know CSS stands for cascading style sheet. And the cascade, talks about the specificity, how styles have been applied to an element. So it comes from the least specific to the more specific. So like the waterfall here, you see if you have a styling at the top and we have another styling at the bottom, CSS will first make use of the styling at the bottom instead of the styling at the top. So this is just an example or an illustration about cascade. So we'll be learning how styles have been applied to our elements. Yes, and in which order they are being applied. So we are going to focus on these categories: the position, the specificity, the type, and its importance. The importance, yes. So the positioning, the position of the CSS within the style sheet affects its priority. The lower the rule is in the CSS, the more important it becomes. So now we have two styles, two color for the same element, the same selector. We have the LI with the color red, which is the first tool, and the LI with the color blue, which is the second row. So imagine you're writing your CSS. You've seen, okay, I've written the color red first, and then you change the color at the bottom of your code. What will happen is the second rule always takes effect. So CSS prioritize the one at the lower end of the code or the lower rule. So we'll see how that works. Let me go to my code, and let's say here we've already, not only with colors, with any property. So let's say we already have an image div here with a width and height. And if I come back here and give the image div, let me say this time I want to give it a width of 20%. Let's see what, okay, fine, 10. Although this will look odd on the page, but let's see what will happen. Now, even though I had already given the width 40%, sorry, now we have seen that the 10% has taken effect. And that's how CSS works with styling. So if you write your styling at the top and you mistakenly change it at the bottom, the one at the lower end will be applied. So take note of this when you be writing your codes. You may mistakenly write another or alter a style at the bottom of your code. Just know that that style will take effect. Yes. So let's go to the, meanwhile, let me remove this so our code will look good. So let's go back to our slides. The other cascade category that we discuss is specificity. So the specificity determines how specific a selector is when targeting an element. You know, the order of specificities as follow. So fine, if you have your elements and you have a class selector in it, you have an attribute selector in it, and you have an ID selector, the more specific, it starts from the ID selector. Let's imagine this is a waterfall starting from the element selector. So this is how it's been specific. So the ID selector comes first. So whichever styling you apply here works. And the attribute selector comes second, the class, and then the element selector. We learned about the attribute selector, the class in our first session. So if you forgot, just go back to our first session and you'll be able to learn and cover what we learned about these selectors and how to add styling to your elements using the selectors. Okay, so let's see how this works. Back to my code, we have a P element. So in this P tag, I will add first a class. I'll give the class name I'll just say my P, it stands for my paragraph, and I'll give it an attribute because we already have an element. Okay, the tag of itself. We can style an element using the tag name. So for instance, we can style it by applying the style to the paragraph directly without a class, without an attribute, and all of that. So let me add an attribute. Let me say draggable, and let me make it equal to true. This means I can drag my paragraph around. And then let me give it an ID and call the ID. Let me call the ID paragraph. Okay, so now let's add styling according to how it's listed here. First we have P. So we're going to increase the font size, sorry. Let me give this 200 pixel. Let's see what happens on the page. It has become so big. And write P draggable equals to true. And I can add my style. Let me say font size 20 pixel. Let's see what will happen. Fine. We now have a font style back how it was. Remember, if this was not here, what will happen is we have this huge text, but then when we have this here, we have a text with a smaller font size, and we have an ID. You know, an ID we can write it with a pound sign, and let me give it a paragraph. Yeah, because that's the name we gave it. Let me give it a smaller font size. Let me take 10 px. And let's see what will happen. So you've seen that So we've seen that the ID's style has taken the highest priority, and now the style has been applied, even though we have different styles for the same element, but we could see how the style have been applied based on the specificity. So you need to know this, because when you be working on huge lines of codes, you maybe forgot that you've already written a font size and you mistakenly update it and you see the difference. But if you have, because you have this knowledge, you'll be able to say, okay, let me check. Maybe I've altered the specificity. Okay, let me go back to code and let me go back to our notes. We've talked about the specificity. Now we are going to, okay, this is the same. This is what we are learning about. We'll talk about the type. So we learned about the different ways we can add styles to us HTML code. So then we can do that using three methods. We learn about the inline styles, we learn about the internal styles, we learn about the external style. Yes. So this also has specificity and it has the order of priority. So now, if we do inline style, it has the highest priority. We have the internal style also has a higher priority than the external styles. So if you find out that you have a tag, for instance, we have a H1 here with a color of red. We have an internal style with the color of blue, and we have okay, if we have an external style with another color, what will happen is the inline style will take the highest priority, and if there is no inline style, the browser will look for an internal style, and if there is no internal style, then it will go for an external style. Okay, so let's see how this works. So fine, we have already an internal style. So let's see. Now we have a div here of with a width of 40%. So I can change that by adding line style. Let's see. Let's say width. Let me give it 10%. So let's see which one will take the highest priority. So fine, we could see that the inline style has taken the higher priority. Okay, so this is how it works. This has a higher priority than this. And let's say we have an external style. Okay, now. So let me add this here. I'll give it a illustration. Style switch. This. Okay. Let me give a width of, let me give this a week. I can copy this and come here. And let me give it a week of 5%. Let's check our code to see what will happen. It's still 10%. We go to our Chrome developers tool and we check. We'll see that the 10% is being active while the 5%, 40% is not being taken into consideration. And this because of the priority. So the external styling will not work because we already have an internal style and an inline style. So inline style has higher priority than internal style, and internal style has higher priority than external style. So we should take note of that. Okay. So let's go to next slide. So now, if we want any of our CSS codes to, take importance, what we'll do is we add a important keyword at the end of the code, yes, or at the close to the value. So let me go back. I can undo this, and I have this. Let me check my code. Back. So now I want this 5% to take effect despite the parity. So what I'll do is I'll add the important keyword to it. So let's see what will happen. So the 5% has taken effect. So know that with this important keyword, you can override the priority of how styles is being applied to your page. Okay. So now combining CSS. It's very important to learn how to combine CSS selectors because it helps you minimize the amount of classes you write, and it will help your code to be clean and organized. So we have different ways of combining CSS selectors. We have the group selector, we have the child selector, we have selector combining methods. So group selector, you can group selectors and add styles to it. Initially, we learned how to write styles to just your H1, but you can add styles to different tags by just adding this comma in between. So let me just do a simplest illustration. Now we have here, let me see. Let me move this. So now we have here both H1 and paragraph. Let me say I want to add the same style to the P tag and the H1 tag. With just this comma, I can change their color to whatever I like. Let me say this. Let's see. The style will be applied. Okay. So this is how you apply styles by grouping selectors. You can group them. Okay. And also you can add styles using this right angle brackets by referring to a child of a parent. So we have a parent and a child relationship among elements in HTML. So if you have a code like this, you find out that the parent of these other elements like the image, the H1 and the paragraph is the body and inside the body. So if we have another div, let me see if we have an outer div. Now, if we have an element inside the div, let's assume all of these tags are inside this div, then the body is no longer the parents, so these other divs, yes, they may be grandchildren to the body, but the parent, the direct parent is, so the div are these elements, okay? Okay. 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 So now we can add styles by referring to the parent and a child relationship using the right angle bracket. So let's say we wanted to add styles to this image. There is no need for us to even write a class here. So we can even say, if we want, we can say, if we have a class here, we can just say, okay, without a class first, we can say, because we only have one div on the page, we can say div with the right angle bracket, img. The same styles will be applied to the image. You see, just by using the right angle bracket. So I can add my class here and say section 1. Let me copy this. Then I can add my styles to section 1 image, and let's see what will happen. It's the same. So you can refer to, instead of adding class to all of this, you can refer to section 1, section 1, H1, and let's see what will happen. It has the color. So you can, just with this class name in the div, you can reach out to all the children elements just by using this right angle bracket. So it helps you to minimize the amount of number of classes you write, the number of classes you on your divs or elements. And okay, let's go to the next slide. Descendant selector. So it also works like you can refer to all elements that are parts of a particular element using the descendant selector. For instance, we are targeting all lists inside a parent element with the class dot box. So the styles will be applied to all lists in that section. So the next one we have training selector. So it's another style, so you can add a list item, you know, with a class done. You can give it this color. So you can give it a try. You can go to MDN documentation and study how to combine CSS. I believe with this short introduction, you'll be able to, you know, put this into practice and learn more about it. Okay, we now go to CSS positioning. So this is very, very important for us to learn because it helps us to lay out our elements on a web page. So we have different types of positioning. We have the static positioning, the relative positioning, absolute, fixed, and sticky. So we go to we start with the static positioning. So the static position, by default, elements are positioned statically. So they are positioned as static. So if we go to our page and dive into Chrome Developer Tools. Okay, the display activity version. Okay, fine. If we go to our web development tools, here you'll see the position has been static. So if you can see, you'll find that the default is static. Okay. So if you come here as well, you see the default for the image is also static. So the default positioning for every element on a page is actually static. What static means it's in its right position where we placed it, and it's not disturbing the normal flow of the document. We'll learn about different types of positioning. So we have the relative positioning, and this relative position is relative to the original place in the document. So we can use the top, left, right, and bottom to offset the element. So initially, we can use the left and the top property. Separate top 40 pixel. Let's see, nothing will happen here because it's static. But let me say if I make this image and give it a position relative, let's see what will have happened. See, it has moved down 40 pixels from its original position. And that's because I gave it the position relative. So I can move it left. Let me see, 50 pixel left. Let's see what will happen. It has moved it 50 pixel left from its original position. In the next slide, which is fixed positioning. So what's fixed positioning? It means we have our element fixed on the page. So despite the scrolling, it will not remove the elements from that page. Let's see how this is done. So let me say we have a div here. And yeah, I'll just put a paragraph. hello world. And let me just give this a class. We call it a header. So now we have the header here, and let me give it a height. Okay, we'll see it. And the width, we'll give it 100%. Let's see, the background color white. Okay, so now we can see some of these spaces up here, and that's because of some elements comes with margins and padding like these. So for me to get rid of all of this, I can come here and use my universal selector, come here and make my margin 0, and I'll also remove all paddings from all elements, and let's see what will happen. Fine, so it's here, and I can give this header a color black, so my text elements will have a black color. Okay, now my hello world is showing. My hello world is showing. So now I need to add more contents. Let me add more contents here. So let me see. 300. Okay. Let me see what I have here. Right. So I finally have a scrolling bar. I just wanted a scrolling bar. Don't mind my long text. Okay, so now I'm scrolling and everything is scrolling, but I want to make this heading fixed. How will I do that? I'll come to my header and give it a position fixed. Let's see what will happen. Let's go. Now it is fixed. Okay, but if you could see, some parts of the element is being covered. So now if I didn't have imagine 50, top 50 pixel here, see what will have happened when I'm scrolling. My image is being cut at the top. So what I need to do is I need to give my body a padding top to ensure that my text or my contents are not covered. So I'll just give, let me say 20 pixel, give it just a padding. Okay, so we now have our element, but it's still cutting at the top, so I need to increase it. So I need to 70 pixel. Padding top, and we are fine. Now elements it's not being covered. So now we can scroll. So this is how we do fixed or position our elements fixed. So if you could see, we now have it fixed. And despite the scrolling, our element is fixed at the top. Okay, let's go to the next, which is sticky. So sticky works like fixed, it's almost the same, but the difference is you scroll until you reach that particular element, then it becomes fixed. So let me make an image sticky. Let's say position. And let's make this sticky. I should specify at which position it should become sticky. Let me say so. 50 pixel. Okay. So once it reach top 50 pixel, then it will be sticky on the page. So this is how sticky works. And we can do it for the same heading. So I can remove this here and add the sticky to the header instead of fixed. Since we already have a top of 0, so we want it to be sticky at the top of the page. So I can add sticky. But the difference between that is, if you could see, we now have this huge padding top here. It's not necessary when you're using sticky. So I can just remove my padding top here. And let's see. So now we have our element sticky. I can give my margin top of 40 pixel and see what will happen. And we now have our element sticky. So this is the difference between fixed and sticky, but they work all the same. The only thing is it will scroll until the position you want it to stop. So in the area of the image, as I showed you guys just now, if I write position, if I say position sticky and give it at the top when it's top, let me save. So I'll scroll until it reaches 30 pixel at the top, then it becomes sticky. And all of the content will flow. Okay, we'll scroll except it. So let's go back to the next, which is Z index. So this determines the stack order of elements. So now we have an image sticky in front, but let's say we want it to be underneath the text. What will happen? We have to give them a Z index from the code, because see, the one with the higher Z index will be at the top, and the one with the lower Z index will be at the bottom. Image, so go backwards. We'll write a P tag, and we'll open it by giving it position. Let me say relative. Since this is sticky and we want this to go backward, we'll give it a Z index of 0. And we want the paragraph to come in top, we'll give it a Z index of 1. Let's see how this is working. Now we have a paragraph in top. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I have a project here for you. These are 2 different projects. You can work with using the absolute. I think we didn't talk about the absolute positioning. Yes. So I'll include the slides after this meeting. But let me show you how the absolute positioning work. So for instance, let me say we have okay, we have a div here. Okay, just after the header. Let me see what we have. Okay. Let me see what we have. Okay. Let me give this, give it a win. 100. So let me say the so what's the 30%? So go back down, color blue. Copy this. Okay, fine. So I can censor this. Let me censor this. Okay. Let me say imagine. So now we have this ball inside this div. Let's say we have this blue ball position absolute and see what will happen without giving any position to the blue box. Fine. So it is here, but let's give it a top value of let me say 20 pixel. So you see, it has moved the elements based on the viewport because its parent element has no position. So what will happen is it will assume it's at position relative to the viewport. So the document, yes, so the left corner of the document. So let me say left. If I give the property left and say 20 pixel, let's see what will happen. Fine, it has moved away from the document flow. You can now find it at the corner here. But let's assume that we have a position set to relative for its parent. Let's see what will happen and refresh. Sorry, this is padding. This is supposed to be position. So now it is moving inside this element. It's now being moved within. So it will now move outside the document. So now I can move it wherever I want, even if I say 100 pixel, it's relative to this element, inside this element. Unlike if there were no position at the parent div, which is the blue, it would have moved outside, to move from its parent and be positioned outside. So this is how we use relative and absolute positioning. So let me just do something and make this, let me give this, let me give it 200 pixel. I think we have an assignment here to make this design. So I'll just make the eyes and the head you work on the ears, the nose, and the mouth. So let's assume that my teddy is blue, and I will give a border radius of 50% and make it round. Okay, it's now round, and I'll make sure I make this a position relative, because I want my other leaves to be inside, not to go outside. So this I'll call this the head, and let me call this the eye. But then I'll need two eyes. So let me copy this. And this, I'll say the left eye. I'll give this another class of left. And this I'll give it another class of right. So we now have this supposed to be head. This supposed to be eye. So I can use this not the 6. I want to make it so small. Let's see. There's a looking fine. Let's see, like right. Maybe it's a height of it. Okay. I think it's small. So 10 pixel. 10 pixel. Okay. I think the eyes are good. So now let me target the left and right. You can just make the eyes absolute. Okay. And let me target the left. And let me say, yeah. Let's see. I wanted to use that pixel. Let's see. Okay. I think it's right here. So yeah, so let me move it. Let me see. That's good. It's moving. Yes, keep quiet, I'm watching. So we now have, let me give it to Excel. Let's see. Okay, so I have to reduce the, yes, let me see. 20. Okay. Right, so you have to guess it until you get it. Okay, let's try 60. Of course, my heavy eyes is fine there, the left eye. Okay, it's not bad. So let me check the right. Let me keep it. That's right. See. Yes. Maybe I want this a little bit closer. You can give it. I don't know. Okay. Oh, I need to increase it. Oh, okay. So I now have my teddy with the eyes, with the red eyes. So you can now position another div for the ears, the nose, and the mouth for your assignment. Okay, so you can play around it. You learn about how to position elements using flexbox and grids, and that will just save you a whole lot of time using some of this. But it's good you learn it because you may need to apply it in any ways. But once you get to advanced layouting elements, sometimes you hardly use this. Okay, so let's get back to our slide. You have your assignments. I just took you through how we can give eyes. You can work on how you give your ears using radius. You know, you have to border radius, you have right top. Mommy. So you can apply it according to. Okay. So we have what we call the CSS display property. So the CSS display property, we have the block, we have the block, which is the default. Yes, you can read about it. Like, I'll not say like default, but some elements are blocked elements by default. And you have some elements that have inline elements by default. For instance, div are block elements by default. Paragraphs are block elements by default. So if you want to know this, if I can target my H1 here, okay, I don't need this here again. Just need to remove this. Let me target my H1 and give it a border. Let's see what will happen. So you see, it takes the entire screen or the viewport because it's blocked. Just like a block now, no elements can sit by the side. It takes the whole space for himself or for itself. So these are block elements. And we have inline elements. For instance, images are inline elements. If I copy this image and duplicate it, let's see what will happen. So you see, it sits side by side. So these are inline elements, okay? And we have inline block element. Let's go to a slide. Yes, so these elements allows elements to sit in line while you can adjust the width and the height. Okay, so we'll see how this works shortly. So we have also what is called a display of none. So if you don't want to see an element on your page at all, you can set the display property to none. For instance, if I want to see my image, I can set the display property to none, and it will not show on my page. So this will be useful when you'll be working with menus and all of that. So now you can find my image here because I've given it a display of none. So let's say in our header, we have like paragraphs of text. Let me see. Assume this is and this is about okay, and this is contact. And this is contact. Okay. Okay, increase the size of the header, the height of the header. Okay. So these are block elements. Let's say I target the header paragraphs using make the direct child, I will say header P, and give them a border. Let me say, okay, okay, it's fine. Let me say 1px solid. I'm gonna give it black. Let's see what will happen. All of them has taken the whole width of the page. So let's give them a background color. They're brick. So let's give them a color white. Let's see. Okay, fine. So we now have them. You can see that they have taken the whole width of the page, but we can give them a display of inline. Currently, they are displayed block by default. If we give them a display of inline, now we could see that they have something like this. If I want to give it a margin top, let's see what will happen. Nothing happened. But now if I give it inline block, we're able to, give it margin